You learned this in school, or maybe you watched it on YouTube. Catherine the Great, the enlightened empress. She wrote letters to Voltaire, vaccinated her children against smallpox, founded the Hermitage. And Pugachev? A bearded villain with a whip, an impostor who claimed to be Peter III. A senseless and merciless rebellion. Thank you, Pushkin, for that beautiful phrase. Just a bunch of wild peasants with pitchforks. Executed in Moscow. Everyone exhaled. The empire was saved. A beautiful fairy tale, right? Catherine personally edited the decrees of 1774. She needed to show Europe everything is under control. And if some village is burned, well, peasants always burn. Statistics. But one number haunts me. 1 million. Participants in the uprising, from the Urals to the Volga, against 50,000 government troops. 1 million peasants with spears, against a regular army. This is not a rebellion. This is a civil war. Welcome to the Archive of Hidden Facts with a Smile. Today's segment, Hidden Facts in History. We're opening the folder that Catherine nailed shut herself. This is Svetlana. And yes, it will be a little scary. But we're going to laugh, because otherwise, you just want to cry. In the 1830s, Alexander Pushkin was desperate to get into the archives. They gave him documents, but half of the files from Orenburg had disappeared, accidentally. During the Soviet era, historian Ovchinnikov dug deeper. He found file number 372 in the Russian State Archive of Ancient Acts. Sealed with wax, Catherine's personal seal. Inside, an order from the 9th of November, 1773, I quote, "Burn the houses and the grain, spare no one." This wasn't fighting rebels. This was the destruction of their own population. Why weren't the papers burned? Historians shrug. A bag got lost. A bureaucratic mistake. A leak. The secret sat for 200 years. It was only declassified in the 1960s. But the number 1 million dead and captured is still buried in textbook footnotes. Why? Because 1 million rebels isn't robbery, it's war, and power doesn't like it. When you know how easily it can be challenged. You think an illiterate Cossack built this giant machine by accident? He had 2 main lieutenants, Ivan Beloborodov, a Ural factory worker, Chika Zarubin, a Cossack captain. They commanded armies of thousands. In January 1774, near Chelyabinsk, Beloborodov's forces reached 15,000 bayonets. That's more than some European kings had at the time. Zarubin laid siege to Ufa. The siege lasted from October 1773 to March 1774. The city held out, but 90% of the surrounding area burned. Catherine, in letters to Baron Grimm, called Pugachev an arch-scoundrel. She refused to admit the scale of the threat, because admitting it would mean admitting the empire was rotting, and that? Not funny anymore. The historian Limonov calculated Pugachev's troop strength at different times ranged from times 25,000 to 40,000, plus irregular units of 5 to 10 fighters in every village. Total, 600,000 to 1 million participants, including mobilized peasants. This isn't a gang of bandits with pitchforks. It's an army, with its own artillery, reconnaissance, and field kitchens. Peasants on horses turned out to be better organized than the Empress's generals. Funny, right? Funny and terrifying at the same time. After crushing the uprising, Catherine launched the provincial reform of 1000 775, officially for order. In reality, to control every district personally. But she did something else. She rewrote memory. Pushkin's manuscript, The History of Pugachev, was cut under Nicholas I. They removed peasant testimonies. They deleted mass executions. Ask yourself, who benefits from painting Pugachev as a bandit instead of a defeated general? The nobles, the bureaucrats, the military, who after the reform gained unlimited power. And since 1767, peasants were forbidden to complain about their landlords under threat of hard labor. A vicious circle. You're oppressed, you rebel. You're called an animal, you're killed. And then for 200 years they tell you, your rebellion was meaningless. Coincidence that General Dubrovin's study of Pugachev came out in Times 1884? That was right after the assassination of Tsar Alexander II by populist revolutionaries. The authorities were panicking. Look what happens when peasants pick up pitchforks. The truth is buried under textbooks, but we dug it up. A little dusty, but uncensored. Did you know Pugachev had an actual political program? In July 1774, he issued a manifesto. He abolished serfdom. He gave land to the peasants. He eliminated taxes. And, get this, he freed women from domestic slavery. This isn't a joke with an axe. Catherine was furious. Her letters from 1774 are full of lines like, "This peasant is more dangerous than any European king." She wasn't afraid of pitchforks and axes. She was afraid of IDAs. And ideas are contagious. Pugachev's manifesto was copied by hand, passed from hand to hand, burned on pyres alongside bodies, but it survived. Petersburg's archives hold 7 copies. On 3 of them, a note, "Destroy after reading," signed, Her Imperial Majesty. They weren't destroyed. Accident? Or did that clerk, the one who hid pages in his boot, decide that truth was worth more than an order? We'll never know. But the power of words proved stronger than the power of armies. Pugachev lost the battle, but he won the war for hearts and minds. Open your textbook. Find the map of Pugachev's rebellion. In standard editions, it's not there. Why? Because the territory was too vast. The uprising covered the Orenburg region, the Urals, Bashkortostan, Tatarstan, the Lower Volga, and part of western Siberia. That's like if today, the entire eastern half of the United States rose up, from Chicago to Florida, plus Texas and California. The scale shocks you. In 1774, Pugachev's forces burned Kazan. The Kremlin burned for 3 days. 80% of the wooden buildings were destroyed. Catherine wrote to Voltaire, "We have lost Kazan, but saved the empire." Imagine that, the capital of an entire region, in the hands of wild peasants. No one believed it was possible. So no one prepared. Is it an accident that these maps are hidden? Because they show that power can be fragile, and that's a bad example. Today, the same thing happens with protest maps online. Some are shown, some are hidden. The machinery hasn't changed. Only the tools have. Gunpowder and quills have been replaced by algorithms and likes.
300,000, not counting refugees.
In 1782, Catherine ordered a census. The results were classified for 70 years, published only in the 1850s. According to the census, the population of the Orenburg, Kazan, and Nizhny Novgorod provinces dropped by 12 to 15% compared to the 1760s. Historian Ovchinnikov recalculated. That's about 300,000 direct deaths, not counting those who fled to Siberia or the Urals. Most were civilians, peasants burned alive on generals' orders. For comparison, during the time's Russo-Turkish War of 1768, 1774, Russia lost about 75,000 soldiers. The war with Pugachev claimed nearly 4 times as many lives. But textbooks mention the Turkish War, the Bashkirs and Tatars. Silence. Why? Because the victims among non-Russians and serfs were treated as manufacturing defects. An inconvenient truth. Like old furniture, too heavy to carry out, too ugly to keep, so it got shoved into a corner. The secret isn't the cruelty. The secret is that we see the same machinery today in news reports. Whose losses count? Those who look like us. Whose losses are ignored? Those who are other. That's not irony. That's the survival law of every bureaucracy.
Gentle.
This machine is simple, like a pancake recipe. First, fear. After the uprising, Catherine couldn't sleep. She was afraid of a repeat. Afraid that Russia would turn into France, where a revolution was about to explode. Second, censorship. Her secretary Bezborodko cut the words social program from every report. But Pugachev had one: land distribution, tax abolition, freedom. Third, bureaucracy. Documents were locked in special collections. Access granted only to approved historians. General Dubrovin. Okay. Peasants' grandchildren, no. Fourth, myth-making. Peasants were painted as drunks, Pugachev as a lying slave. But he built an army with artillery, stormed fortresses, fought for 2 years. Power isn't about controlling everyone. Power is about controlling what people believe is true. Catherine figured this out before your grandmother figured out that TV sometimes lies. She won the information war. Pugachev stayed in the dark zone, a textbook line, next to a photo of the Hermitage. Convenient, isn't it? Think this is all in the past? Naive. The machine just changed its oil. Instead of an empress, corporations. Instead of governors, the algorithms in your feed. Is it an accident that there's no decent movie about Pugachev? In 1978, there was a Soviet film, Yemelyan Pugachev, boring. In 2000, the Russian revolt, based on Pushkin, went unnoticed. Why no Hollywood blockbuster? Because it would show how 1 million people rose up against the system. And that's a dangerous example. Look at today. You read the news about a strike. Who gets called activists? Who gets called criminals? The choice of words, that's the same battle for your mind. Catherine won with a pen. Today, they win with algorithms. And the dark side? You think you're free, while someone else is pressing the buttons of your attention.
Choose.
You know what's the most cynical part? After her victory, Catherine issued paper money assignats to pay for the war with Pugachev and the war with Turkey. In other words, the taxes paid by peasants bought the bullets that killed their own fathers. Economic irony. Today, you pay taxes. Some goes to military budgets. Some goes to propaganda. You don't choose where. The people who distribute the money also don't want you digging too deep into the history of revolts. Education is expensive, especially when it threatens power. That's how the dark force of money closes the loop. The secret of Pugachev isn't whether he was a hero or a villain. The secret is that empires want you to choose between bad Tsarist army and bad rebels. Instead of asking, Why was anyone shooting at all? Revealed. You see the system. Now it's your move. You can close this tab. Go back to cat videos. Forget about a million corpses. That's your choice. Or you can accept the fact your social media feed is Bolotnaya Square of 1,775. They execute truth there every day, so you can feel comfortable. But now you know about File No 372. You know about the million. You know why your textbook was silent. Coincidence? Of course not. It's these little cracks that turn you from a consumer of history into an investigator. On the Archive of Hidden Facts with a Smile, we open such folders every week. Subscribe so you don't fall asleep. And now a question. If you had lived in 1773, would you have followed a man promising freedom, knowing you might later be led in chains through Moscow? Write it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. This is Svetlana, and may your truth always smell like coffee, not like a textbook.